Hey guys, welcome back to another installment of Noob GM on the Dargon Gaming Squad. Today I'm going to talk about a half shot that I ran a few weeks ago. I have some prep video clips that I shot prior to the airing of that half shot, and then I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about a few other details now that it has ended. So, as we like to say, grab a drink, grab a snack, pull up a chair, and join us for a little bit. So a few weeks ago in early March, I did run a half shot as per challenged by our newest squad member, Josh Rivera, from RPG Enlightenment. And so today, like I said, I'd like to share some of my prep as well as some afterthoughts. So why don't we go right ahead and jump into some of that prep video, and then I'll meet you on the other side. I've been putting this thing together and I'm running it tomorrow. The outline of the adventure I gave is that they've been sent to explore a cave that mysteriously appeared and seems to be man-made, and their superiors want to know where it goes and what it's about, and somehow they ended up in these cobalt layers. So there's some deeper backstory, of course, to that in this country that I've created. I sat down with a few folks and did a microscope. Actually, we did it on Hangouts and came up with a few things, and the kobolds are part of what's going on. So one of the things I did is I really liked the map in Volo's Guide of the Kobold Lair. And for those who have this book, it's in there in the Kobold section. It's page, I think it says 69. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on, but I was able to find that map online. I paid, I don't know, $1.99 or something to, yeah, it was $1.99 from Red Epic Maps. A guy named Jared Blando, I don't know how his name's pronounced, but it's B-L-A-N-D-O, had this map available for sale, so I purchased the map. Okay, I thought this angle would be a little bit easier. Alright, so what I did was I numbered this map, and you can see there's red numbers all over it. There were enough rooms. There's actually 21 rooms on this map, and so I did have one way down here that's just a deep pit toilet. They have quite a few of those on here, which I think is kind of funny. Interestingly, there's mention in the book about kobolds and their eggs, and I don't see anything that talks about like an egg room. But anyway, this room ended up not getting numbered, but I'm not going to worry about it. So I ended up with 20 rooms that I numbered. And then the other thing I did was I went and I numbered all of the escape tunnels. And so there were only 5 of those. I went down my left side of the map first, and then I went down my right side of the map. And then the 5th one's down here in the bottom. And then what I did was I added one more way up at the top here. I made 6. This isn't even an escape tunnel. This is just an area that looks like maybe it would be, and I thought it would be probably a place that would confuse adventurers. They would probably go that way and then find that there wasn't anything. So just to have all the die used, I thought that would be a lot easier. Anyway, so I rolled a 20 to tell me which room they are near or in when the adventure starts, and I rolled a 6-sided die to tell me which exit. And so what I ended up with was a 13, which is this deep pit toilet over here. So what I figure is they probably entered into this sleeping room somehow from one of these other areas, maybe, or maybe even they came up this way, but they ended up turning that way and ended up in this toilet and realized what it was, and they were maybe coming back out when they got ambushed. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And then for the exit, I rolled a 6-sided die and I got a 5. And so that puts them down here at this west, I guess, exit. So what I figure is when the adventure starts, they're going to be running from this area. And so what I've decided then is that they're going to be going right down this passage. So just depending on which way they run, what they do is I'm just going to follow along and see what they do. Each square is 5 feet. So this is a pretty big tunnel, or pretty big layer, but the tunnels themselves are only about 5 feet wide. So they're going to have kobolds, and they're going to have, at some point, I'm going to bring in mounted kobolds that are on giant weasels. And I figure those giant weasels are probably going to pretty much block up the whole tunnel. So that's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if I'm going to bring them in right from the start or if that's going to be in the final encounter. But my idea then is, of course, they're going to be getting chased. So they're going to be making their way this way, and I'm just going to track their progress depending on what they choose. I still don't know what I'm going to do with the one-shot, and what I've decided is a lot of it's going to be determined from what happens in this session. So if they end up getting trapped here and they don't escape successfully, then that's where they'll pick up for the one-shot. If they get out, then I'll come up with something else. They may be coming back here and trying to talk to the kobolds. I might have them come back and, like, try to capture one or something like that to figure out why they're being attacked. So reason being that they've always been kind of peaceful here. So I'm trying to keep this one really simple. Again, it's a half shot. So what I did last time was I chose a situation for them to deal with, and then I also had an opportunity for combat. And it ran about 2 hours, which was my aim, an hour and a half to a 2-hour session, so half of a typical D&D session anyway. I find most of my D&D sessions are 3 to 4 hours depending on the GM and depending on how big the group is, and also depending on whether it's a campaign or whether it's a one-shot. I feel like one-shots kind of run a little longer sometimes. It kind of sometimes takes a while for people to warm up. So this is all going to be part of a bigger West Marches campaign that I want to run. If you're not familiar with that, I'll link the article below about it. I learned about this a couple different ways. I actually first heard it mentioned in reference to a Star Wars game that was gonna be a West Marches, and then later heard a really good explanation of what that was via one of the podcasts I listened to, and that podcast referenced this article that I will link below. And so since then I've looked into the article, but the general idea is that it's a very exploratory campaign. It's designed to work with large groups of people, and they can drop in and drop out. The person who wrote the article and first, did this with his group and kind of put a name to it, had the idea that the players would decide when they want to play and where they want to go. So they would pick an area that they'd heard about in the game, or I don't know if he has like a bigger, very general map that he shares with his players or not. I know that they have to kind of map build as they go. My idea is to have the map and share it with my group. In fact, that's another thing I'm working on. But anyway, so this half shot and the subsequent one shot will be kind of the first launch into getting this going. All right, so looking back on that clip, one thing I realized is that I was a little bit vague about what I meant in regards to these exit numbers. So what I did was I used that only to determine what exit or what direction they were exiting whatever room they landed in from. So they, again, were in 13, and I kind of just put them out here in this passage from number 9. And 9 had 5 exits, but of course they already knew what this one was. So I had them going south, and So that's what I did. And then I just left the rest up to them. I just described to them where they were going. Something I hadn't accounted for was how fast they were going to be moving, because they did, of course, want to dash. They were hoping to gain some ground and maybe hole up somewhere. And they did a great job of that, but it was amazing to me to realize really how many, when I kind of processed that the squares again were, 5 feet per square, basically in one round they were moving through whole passages really fast. So that was interesting. So another piece that I did not share, I think I may not have decided how I was doing it yet, and maybe that's why I didn't include it in those clips. But I had decided earlier on that I wanted them to already have taken damage and be injured, or at least to have a mechanic, something in place to determine whether they were or not. And so my original premise had been, I thought I was only going to have Josh and Nate and maybe one other player, either Emily or Corey, just based on availability and who was interested. But I ended up with, with a full group. I had Josh and his wife joined us for the first time. It was her first time ever playing. We had Corey, and then we had Nate and his fiance and fellow squad member, Emily. So we had almost the whole squad. So I had a lot more people than I thought I would. So my original idea was that was part of why they were running, that they had been part of a 4 or 5 group party, 5-person party, maybe even more, and the other members had been killed in battle. And so I actually still stuck with that, just went with a bigger party size. It just said, 3 of your companions are already dead. And then what I did was I did stick with the mechanic thing. What I had the players do is roll a 10-sided die, and I asked them to do the tens place. Now, there's a couple ways that can be done. If players only have the 10-sided die that looks like this, meaning it has single digits going around around the spaces on the die, they can do that, and they're going to add a tens place to this die. So in other words, if they roll an 8, then that becomes an 80. If they roll a 0, that's 100, etc. Or if you have this die that already has a tens place on it, then you've got it. This one has a double 0 for the 100. Now, back in old days, for those who don't know what these dice are used for, I don't know if there's still games where that's used as a mechanic, or if some DMs are still using it in D&D. But in 2nd edition, at least, you would roll 2 of these. We're constantly rolling 2 tens, a 20 and 2 tens for perception, apparently, and I don't even know how that works. That's a DM side that I've never explored. But so you're often rolling those. So in that case, if you roll the 0s and then you roll something on your on this die, then you've gotten 1 or 8 or whatever it is. But if you roll the 0 on here and the 0s on here, then that's 100. So 3 0s is 100. Anyway, so what I did was I had them roll that, and then whatever that number was the percentage of hit points they had remaining. So Nate lucked out and rolled a 0, so he had 100. I think the lowest person had only like 40%, or it might have been even 30%. You can watch the video and find out if you're curious. But that actually worked pretty well, and it did create a little tension and a little concern, and encouraged the need to maybe hole up so that they could, heal and be ready for what I knew was probably going to have a final battle. So that worked out really well. It was a little different from what people had recommended to me in terms of doing damage, but I liked that it was random, and I liked that everybody was different. I would have felt really bad if somebody had a super low number, and I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to handle that if somebody came up with anything under 30%. But one thought I had was that I had thought about just limiting it to 30. But anyway, so those were a couple additional prep things that I did. So Before I forget to, I will make sure to include the website for where I got this map. So it's just an official licensed map, and you get, it's like I believe it was a PDF of it, and it made it possible to print it without having to abuse my book to make a copy of it out of the book. So I was really happy to have that. Here recently I ordered a laminator, and I have to tell you that I am really tempted to just go ahead and laminate this. What I'm thinking is that the players may end up going back here at some point. I mentioned that in some of the other clips too. They may go back. At some point, somebody needs to finish exploring what turned out to be a tunnel. The cave, you know, that I sent them to turned out to be a tunnel. Nobody knows where it goes yet, and they got themselves into trouble in this kobold lair before they could find out. So at some point, that's probably going to be a session or several. So I'm thinking about laminating that in case they get into that layer again or something else goes on that involves using that layer. And my thought is then I could use a wet erase marker to, you know, make additional notations on it, you know, and use it in game. So that's a thought. So the other piece that I put together for this, excuse me, that I know I mentioned in the clips is I did put together a Chase Complications roll table. And all I did was adapt one I found that was for the Underdark. I made like one minor change to it. I think everything else worked pretty well. I might be able to find the link again. I didn't think to share save the link when I you know, found it, so I don't know that I have that handy to share with you now, but if I do, I'll post that below. So overall, I did have a brand new player, and that was Josh's wife. I know it wasn't exactly what she expected, so it's hard to tell if she really enjoyed herself or not, but I think overall most of the group did have a really good time. It was a good way to get our feet wet, and we're kind of laying the groundwork right now for, you know, the history, well, not so much the history, but like what's going on right now in this country that I created and that Corey and I are working on, and that's Sanchi. So this was a good kind of first peek. It was almost like an epilogue or a prelude, you know, for the characters to kind of see, oh, there's this thing going on. I was kind of blown away because they pretty much did exactly what I predicted in terms of, you know, where they ended up. I remember saying, oh, they'd probably end up with a battle in this room here, and they did manage to navigate themselves right there, and then they were able to navigate themselves right out. And they just had some good perception rolls and a couple of things that really helped them along the way. So overall, it was a pretty good experience. It definitely got me excited to run some more, and I'm already working on another one-shot. I have a concept in mind. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. And if you have any comments or suggestions or just tips you want to share for other GMs, feel free to share them in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. And whether you're stopping by for the first time or the 100th time, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button so that you can catch all of our videos. And so guys, until next time, get out and get gaming. Bye.